Welcome to Devil in a Small Town, a mystery with twists, a cult, and a missing person. I'm your host, FL Dad, and in this mini-series, we'll delve deep into a chilling and perplexing case that shook a small town to its core. Our story begins on a cool spring evening in May. There was a pleasant breeze blowing, making the very tops of trees sway under the stars that were slowly becoming visible as the sky began to darken. The sky was free of clouds, making the moon seem to glow like one giant LED light bulb. There was one highway road that led into and out of the small town of Goshen, New York. Goshen was a close-knit community about 2 hours outside of New York City. It was one of those towns where everyone knows each other's names. The town had a population of around 2,000 residents and has the lowest crime rate in the state. The typical police reports are related to teenagers pulling pranks and mild vandalism, like toilet papering or egging a house. The biggest mystery solved was who stole Mr. Moore's goat and dressed it up in Goshen High School colors for the homecoming pep rally. It's the type of place where doors are left unlocked and where trust is a given. But on that fateful day, that trust was shattered, and the town's peaceful facade was forever changed. Our story centers on the disappearance of Julia Crawford, a respected elementary school teacher and a beloved member of the community. Julia had lived in Goshen for the last 3 years and had never caused a stir, until that evening. It was a typical Sunday night for Julia Crawford. A small group of her friends had gathered for a dinner party at Julia's charming townhome. This tight-knit group of ladies had a weekly tradition that consisted of them taking turns hosting a girls' night dinner party. Tonight was Julia's turn. The girls drank wine, they talked about their week, they discussed topical news, and they always made sure that they were tuned in when their favorite show was airing new episodes. The show Strange Occurrences told a new story in every episode about bizarre events that happened to a family or a town. One week was about a haunting in an old house. Another was about a town where strange creature lived in the woods. And last week's episode was the season finale, about a man who claimed he was abducted by aliens. Tonight there was no new episode to watch, so they just listened to their favorite playlist. Laughter filled the air, and the aroma of a homemade feast wafted through the small townhouse. At the dinner party, things are going fine.
Julia, this meal is delicious. Where did you find this recipe?
I found it online. It was on a cooking chat group I'm part of, on a site called Recipe Me. I love trying new things that the others post. That's where I got the recipe for that jambalaya I brought to the town potluck last month.
I need to be a part of this group. My husband is always saying we need to try some new foods and expand our palates, like he's some fancy food critic.
Absolutely. I'll send you the invite link. Hang on, I'll be right back. I just need to grab my phone. It's been charging in the bedroom.
But moments later, Julia mysteriously vanished. At first, no one noticed. They figured she was on the phone or responding to messages. Then as more time went by, the laughter turned to worried whispers, and a hushed sense of unease settled over the gathering.
Has anyone seen Julia?
At first, her friends jokingly made up ideas about what she could be doing. Updating her Tinder profile. Maybe her lunch upset her stomach and she looked like the scene from Bridesmaids. She had too much wine and passed out. As they all took turns coming up with the wild theory, they all settled on the fact that she must be out walking her little Yorkie named Puffins. But when Puffins came into the room from the opposite side of the townhouse, worry began to set in, and her guests decided to look around for Julia. Over the course of the following 10 minutes, they search every corner of the house, but Julia is nowhere to be found. The police were called, and the investigation into the disappearance of Julia Crawford began. Questions swirled in the mind of the community. How could someone vanish in a town where everyone knows each other? As the investigation into Julia's disappearance kicks into high gear, the entire town is on edge. Suspicions run rife and whispers of doubt grow louder. The police start bringing everyone from that evening into the station for questioning. One by one, they interview each of Julia's friends that were there at her house that night. Detective Jack Bowen, a seasoned investigator from Buffalo with a reputation for solving difficult cases, is assigned to lead the search for answers. Bowen has been the lead investigator for the Goshen PD for the last 8 years. He was only in Goshen for 6 months before being promoted to that position. Jack was one of the best that Buffalo had ever seen, and Buffalo was Jack's hometown. It's where he met his high school sweetheart that later became his wife. They were never able to have kids, even though they had tried for years. It was only when they visited a fertility clinic that they found out the terrible reason why. Jack's wife was diagnosed with cervix cancer. Chemotherapy, radiation, and even some spiritual healing methods were all attempted to treat her cancer, but none worked. The tumor had already spread and did not respond to any of the treatments. A year after being diagnosed, Jack's wife passed away. Soon after, he spiraled into a depression, drinking heavily and even getting a brief suspension for roughing up a suspect that made a comment implying that his wife must be miserable from putting up with him. 6 months passed before Jack decided it was time to get out of Buffalo. His sister convinced him that a quiet small town would help him heal and find peace. So Jack packed up his home and took his law enforcement expertise to Goshen. By now, after serving the 15 years on the force in Buffalo, he had amassed 23 years total time on the force. But even with his years of experience, he was not prepared for what this case would have in store for him. The detective and his team began their quest by talking to everyone present at Julia's gathering that fateful evening. Each of them explained the events of the evening and everything they remembered leading up to the moment they realized something was wrong and called the police. One friend says she last saw Julia leaving the dining room to check her phone in the bedroom. Another friend says she remembers that Julia walked out of the room saying she'd be back in a minute, but never came back. It becomes apparent that no one saw anything suspicious, and there's no clear motive for Julia's disappearance. Detective Bowen and his team try to piece together the few clues they have. A half-empty glass of wine, her cell phone, and her jacket were all found on the back porch. Each item potentially offers a glimpse into the evening's chaos. Bowen thinks to himself that none of this makes any sense. He wonders how could someone just disappear in the middle of a party at their own home. Meanwhile, the town is divided between theories. Some believe it's as simple as her rushing off to deal with an emergency text or call that she got and she just never told anyone, while others think it's much darker and much more sinister. The detective knows that this case is more than it seems. With each interview, the list of suspects grows, but the evidence remains elusive. Even the county forensics lab tested the wine glass, her phone, and her jacket, and found no fingerprints or DNA other than Julia's. As the minutes turn into hours and the hours turn into days, the search for answers intensifies. In the next episode, we'll delve deeper into the past of Julia Crawford and the secrets that may hold the key to solving this baffling mystery. Join us as we continue to unravel the clues in Devil in a Small Town.